get out in the real world and suddenly you realize there is no way anybody is going to work with kids and not come in contact and experience child abuse and domestic violence.
And that's what I was going to touch upon, is that sometimes people think, oh, I'm just one person. So one person can make a difference.
Your next favorite podcast pick starts now. Here's the Professor and Heather Ann.
Welcome to the Professor
and Heather Ann.
Although we don't have all the answers, we hope to encourage and excite you. We're here sharing our lives to inspire you to make the most of the second half of your life.
So we have a very powerful episode, and this is something that is truly part of my heart and something that I'm very passionate about. Our guest is a professional who has over 40 years of experience in the human service field, working with children and families with a focus on supporting those who have experienced trauma.
We'll also talk about the long-term impacts of mentoring programs and resilience, sometimes extraordinary and surprising resilience. So even though this is an episode devoted to grim, disturbing topics, the message we want to convey is an uplifting one.
Yes. So as I mentioned previously in podcasts, I grew up in trauma. It's something that I continue to work through. But my negative experiences have impacted my family dynamics. And I know that a lot of what I experienced and was able to change the family dynamics for my boys was because I had amazing people in my life. I was fortunate enough to have, at the time I didn't know that that's what it was, but now I know that I had coaches and teachers and even friends, parents that helped mentor me in ways and helped me through my childhood. Whether they knew it or not, it made a huge impact on my life. And so I do public speaking. I've become a national speaker talking about my childhood and what my family has experienced. And so being able to bring on our next guest really warms my heart. And
so I didn't, before I met you, I didn't know anyone. Well, I shouldn't say, I didn't know anyone who I knew had been abused as a child. Hearing about your experiences was something very new to me. And so I am correct, aren't I, in that the help you got, it was very important and very effective, but there was nothing systematic. It wasn't anything that was dedicated to helping abused children. It was more like
no, there was nothing. Especially when I was growing up, there was nothing. In fact, there was no place to search out to get the help. I had already learned by an early age. By the time I was 7 or 8 years old, because of the laws that were back then, even the police couldn't help us at the time. And so I just kind of had to figure my way through that and just feel like I was just fortunate enough to be put on these paths. I played a lot of sports, so I had a lot of coaches that were there for me, even though they didn't necessarily know what was happening, because you keep that quiet and it's private. They could still tell something. I can see that now as an adult, that I was very fortunate that I had coaches that would come up to me and just, give me a little bit of extra attention. Are you doing okay? My gymnastics coach for several years, and I can't imagine this happening today, but I'd go stay the night with her and go to church with her.
Good.
I would never allow my children to do that. But back then, it was just part of, just the dynamics I was growing up, that, my parents weren't concerned where I was or what I was doing,
right.
that I had the benefit of doing that. So that went on for several years. So it just seems like I went from one coach to another coach or teachers. Even when the trauma happened and we became front page news, I had coaches or teachers that came up to me and just would seek me out in the hallways and just be like, I just want to check on you. Are you doing okay? And I had several friends that I'd have been friends with for years and years, where if they were on campus, that their moms would come up to me and just ask me, are you doing okay? Is there anything you need? And because at that time, especially when I started my senior year of high school, that it was front page news that I started my senior year with my mom in jail. So I was just fortunate enough to be placed in that situation. And I'm very thankful for that. But I know, growing up, what I've experienced and just the things that you're seeing coming to light and everything, because people are more willing to talk about these subjects than they were 20, 30 years ago, is that a lot of kids do not have that. And so one of my great passions is here in Tulsa, we have a camp called Camp Hope, and it's for kids that have lived in trauma. But it is a national organization that's across the country. So it's not just for kids here in Tulsa. There's another one in Oklahoma City. But we have us joining today is Karen Smith. So she's the director of the Oklahoma Coalition Against Human Trafficking and the acting director of Camp Hope America here in Tulsa, that is affiliated with Family Safety Center in Tulsa. She holds a bachelor's and a master's degree in human development and family studies from the University of Arkansas. Karen has received awards, honors over her career, but most recently, the Tulsa Drillers Hometown Hero Award and the Tulsa Police Department's Appreciation Award. That's amazing. I didn't know about that. Congratulations on that. I feel like when we met, it was just by kind of a chance thing. We were introduced by the director of Family Safety Center. And I just instantly was like, here, you're my friend. Tell me about Camp Hope. I was fortunate enough to go to a couple of camps. One of them wasn't that great, but I was fortunate enough to go to a couple of camps when I was younger. And I loved that because I got to go to those camps and nobody knew me. I got to be whoever I wanted to be and hide my secret. Nobody knew the trauma that I was living in. Nobody knew that my dad was beating my mom and us and everything. So as soon as I found out and learned that we had a Camp Hope here, I was very excited. So tell us and tell our listeners about what exactly is Camp Hope.
So Camp Hope is a program for children and families who've been through trauma. It originally started in 2015 in San Diego, San Diego is the Alliance for Hope International. It is the umbrella organization for family justice centers. Family Safety Center is the local family justice center. So Camp Hope is one of the programs. It was originally designed for kids who have been through domestic violence, which family justice centers work with interpersonal and intimate partner violence, and that's kind of the goal, collated, numerous agency co-located under one roof. So Camp Hope is one of the programs. It is expanded beyond domestic violence to child abuse, sexual assault, human trafficking, stalking, trauma in general, kids who have been through trauma. And so they are enrolled in the program. They are nominated by one of our partners. Our partners include, but not only, Family and Children's Service, Domestic Violence Intervention Service, the Spring Shelter, DHS, legal aid, the Tulsa Police Department, just to name a few of the partners. So they're nominated by one of the partners, and then they are enrolled in the program. I do a interview with the kids and families. The program started out basically to be a week of a residential camp, one and done, with the kids being able to come back year after year. And when I started, the national program was morphing into being more than just a week-long camp, and I came in with the attitude of supporting the entire family, because the kids on their own aren't going to make a major difference. Mm-hmm. They are in their home, they're in their life. So really supporting the entire family. The program now is the week of camp. It is a year-round pathways program with mentoring, family engagement activities, and that's kind of hope research, and that's the program. So I enrolled the kids and the families. It's for kids going to camp age 7 to like 16. The whole family is enrolled. The entire family, youngers and olders and grandparents and extended families and whoever, can come to the family engagement activities, the ongoing year-round things.
And what kind of activities do they do year-round?
So year-round includes, we have a partnership with the Tulsa area YMCA, and they partner with a lot of their activities. So we do some indoor and outdoor swim parties. Every fall we do a family campout over a weekend where the whole families pitch tents. The Y provides the tents for families that don't have their own. So it's an amazing partnership. I also have a partnership with the Tulsa Ballet, Partners in Art, and they provide ballet tickets. So I sent out one just this week, received a notice. We have tickets for an upcoming ballet, and I sent out a text to all the camp families and some of the human trafficking families and said, do you want to go with me, Camp Hope, to the ballet? And at the moment, I have there'll be about 40 people that will get tickets to go to the ballet. We do the Nutcracker, Sleeping Beauty, a whole variety of whatever.
Oh,
so that's
amazing.
An amazing
it
partnership
is.
with the ballet. And it's an opportunity for the kids and the families to do something that they normally wouldn't have the opportunity to. The other thing that I am doing is right now I have 4 practicum students, social work practicum students. 2 of them are juniors from ORU. One is a senior from ORU, and one is a graduate student at OU. And so they will also attend the ballet. They will be working on the program, allowing another group of people, students, college students, who wouldn't have an opportunity to do something like this, to then build relationships with the campers, learn about something exciting, and do that. Some other things that I have planned upcoming is just a paint party. Come and paint. And I have a story about that. One of my stories with the painting, I've tended to do that some because painting can be a therapeutic
very much so.
thing. So we just do come and paint. And I did one several years ago, and I had lost touch with one of my campers. She had some issues and had left her home for a bit. And I saw her at the family camp out this past October. And she's grown. It was very exciting to see her. I had painting available there. And at checkout, or when, go home time the next day, I asked, what did she do? She had been in and painted. And I said, I know how much you love that. I have a painting you painted for me hanging in my office. Her eyes got huge. Miss Karen, you kept that?
Oh.
Yes, of course I kept that. Yes, it is hanging in my office. So that painting is coming up. And then we will do a lot of things. I will get donations for things. And so whenever I get a donation, like the ballet tickets, or occasionally I've gotten ORU basketball tickets or TU football tickets, things like that. Hey, we come together. And there's always, in December, we did a skate party at Rama. They have an activity center, and we did a skate party there. And then the families walked the lights if they chose to, the Christmas lights. So just a whole variety of things like that.
And it's providing opportunities.
Yes.
Some of these kids would never
have.
get to experience this. For instance, I love camp. Let's go back and talk about the week of camp. Yes. Being able to, so one of the things that Camp Hope does is not only provide camp for free for the kids, but they'll provide all the amenities that are needed as well, correct? The sleeping bags and bathing suits and all that stuff, because not every child is going to have the things ready to be able to go to camp.
Right.
But the one thing when I heard about Camp Hope that was exciting to me is, number one, camp is a lot of fun.
Yes.
Not all kids get to go. But the thing that really appealed to me the most as a child that grew up in trauma was you don't have to worry about anybody knowing your secret or anything. You get to go and be yourself, because all the kids are in the same situation. They've been through some kind of trauma, some worse than others. Exactly. But you just get to go, and you don't have to. I do know that when I went to camp, sometimes I would have to censor myself because I would say something like, my dad, stripped me down and beat me the other day, and that's why I have these bruises, or, making up stories of why I have bruises. But these kids don't have to worry about what anybody's going to think, or if they say the wrong thing or anything.
Exactly. So the Camp Hope curriculum is based on Hope research. It is evaluated by the Hope Research Center at OU Tulsa. Dr. Chan Hellman runs it. And all the kids that come to camp take a hope and resilience survey before camp when they're enrolling or signing the paperwork for camp. They take it on the last day of camp, and they take it at the 30-day reunion or after camp. And that is compared. The counselors also take a hope and character trait survey the end of the first day of camp and the last day of camp, comparing. They take it on the group of campers that they are in charge of during the week. So then it is sent to OU Tulsa, who does the evaluation of the program. And I can say that nationally, consistently, the kids at camps scores increase, which a lot of people would say that's nothing to be surprised about because you're giving them an intervention. But the key is the 30-day reunion. They stay high and often have even increased. So Hope research says hope begets hope. When they've had success, they're more hopeful and continue to have the success. So the curriculum is based on a theme for the year, and it also then is based on daily truth statements that the kids talk about, and 4 hope heroes. And each of the hope hero is typically someone who's fairly young, 20s to mid-30s, who had some kind of a hope or some kind of trauma in their life, and now they've overcome it and they're doing amazing things with their lives. So that's the curriculum beyond the fun camp things that get to happen.
Well, I can speak personally. I know that hope truly plays a major part. I, often get that question from people who just hear my story, like, how did you survive that? How, that's a typical question. And I know that it was hope. I had hope that I was going to have a better life. I had hope every single time, just like you said, it was living on that high of when I was playing sports, or I was in band and being able to get that first chair. Those were the things that just kept me going. And when something bad would happen and I'd go through a period, like the 7th grade was like my worst year ever. And when I was getting the worst beatings and things changed in the house and all of this stuff, I didn't have a lot of hope that year. But come my 8th grade year, everything changed again. I wasn't being beat, but it was one of the best years of my childhood, because that was when my mom had actually kicked my dad out for the first time. But I lived that whole year, and that was my hope. My hope was, I don't have to have this life. I don't have to worry about being beat. I don't have to, because one thing I talk about a lot is children who grow up in trauma, when they wake up in the morning, they don't just get out of bed. They have to listen and pay attention to what the house is telling them. Is how I explain it to people. Is there already yelling? Is there yelling from last night? Has it stopped? Right. What's happening? Am I in danger? What is they plan that they don't necessarily plan their days ahead of time, because you never know. You get up that morning and it's like, what am I doing? Am I getting out of the house right now? Or can I get some cereal and go watch cartoons in the front of the TV? So I just love Camp Hope. And I've actually had the honor of meeting several campers that came back and were counselors. So tell us about that.
So I'm going to say something first before I get into that, which you reminded me of something that a camper who has been a counselor, come back as a counselor, said during one of our camp weeks. Camp Hope is helping me to break the chain of pain. So, we talk about breaking the cycle of family violence, and she put a different term to it, chain of pain, and that's amazing. So yes, I said that I enroll the campers between the age of 7 to 16, and when they turn 17, they are invited to continue in the program to be a camp counselor. I've had about 18 individuals who to this date have graduated into being a counselor. So the Tulsa program has been going on for 10 years, and we celebrated our 10-year anniversary in October. And many of the individuals who have been a counselor that maybe they stopped for a year or whatever, they were coming together. Oh, let's do it one more time. Let's do it next summer. And so seeing that, and then watching some of the counselors come from being, having been whatever, that are now growing up and getting into careers and life. One of my young lady counselors now is working at DIVIS, Domestic Violence Intervention Services. So giving back, she'd gone through a whole variety of different, what does she want to do when she grows up? And now she wants to be a social worker.
That is amazing.
Yes. One of my young men, was coming to camp. He was there. He'd been involved since year one when we started in 2015. He's coming to camp. And we would have sheriff's deputies come out to camp and spend a day out at camp with them. Building the relationship of law enforcement is not bad.
Correct. Which
yes,
a child growing up in trauma,
yes,
we believe that the police are bad, that they are not there to help us, whether we experience something that's negative with them or they're just told.
Yes,
because it's a way
exactly.
of controlling that, nobody's going to help you. There's nothing that you can do. You are trapped into this situation. So I love hearing that they come out.
So he builds a relationship, or they build a relationship with him, and he decides law enforcement is what he's going to do. He now works for the Tulsa County Sheriff's Department.
Now that is an amazing story.
Yes. Yes.
Well, one of the things that I did when I've met a couple of the campers turned counselors was ask them, because I'm always a curious person, I ask a lot of questions, but why is it that you wanted to come back and be a counselor? And the few that I have met, the response has been, this is what it's done for me. It gave me hope. I was able to change my life. I before I could never dream about what my future is. Now I can, and I want to be able to give back to that, and I want to be able to help kids that are like me, be able to give them hope and know that there's a place for them to go.
Yes, absolutely. So, another story. Young man who did not go through Camp Hope, but his mom worked and I worked together at my previous job. Came time to I was looking for counselors, and I reached out to the mom, and this young man had been adopted, so he'd had trauma. He came back as a counselor. He is still connecting with the other counselors. So he didn't have that opportunity, but he had the opportunity to get to know the others and understand, hey, I can do this. I've been through stuff, and he's now in college at Northeastern.
And that's giving him hope, because he's
giving
meeting
him
kids
hope. Yes.
his age that are counselors that were campers, and what they got out of the program to be able to, that's given him his hope right now. So I've been doing a lot of different work and stuff in the past year or two. It's taken me to the ACEs and PACEs. And so that's the positive things that are setting up in his life and raising that PACEs score for him, because he's having that connection and giving him hope that he can have a better future.
And that's the other thing I have to say about the year-round activities beyond the week of camp. I watch the campers immediately when they show up, is so-and-so coming today? And because of the environment that many of our families do live in, sometimes they aren't able to get to everything. Sometimes programs say you miss and you get kicked out. I don't kick anybody out. I don't see them for 2 years, and
then they come back.
I got a text yesterday saying, again, telling people about the ballet. Yes, I want to be there. We want to get back involved. Wonderful. Please. So they never get kicked out.
I like that.
Yes. And so the families connect with each other. I watch the families calling each other, supporting each other. They now have somebody who maybe hasn't experienced the same thing that they did, but they know they've experienced something.
That, and again, I cannot stress this enough, and why I'm literally just obsessed with the program, but just you have to pretend so much in your life.
Yes.
Because you live a different life outside your front door and than you do on the other side. And so being able to just go out and be around people, other kids, even adults that understand. So if you're not, so you could go outside and be in the real world and not have to censor yourself. That was the thing that I love the most, is just that it just amazes me. It just truly amazes me, because when my family story, because when that all happened, people were just like shocked of, well, how did this happen? How could that happen? Because I didn't talk about it because we're not allowed to.
Right.
You're just not allowed to. Because if you did, then that's a whole different story that happens.
Yes.
Karen, I wonder if we could sort of like rewind here, and if you could tell us how you got into this line of work.
So funny story. Okay. I went to college, had my mind on something. The funny story is my first degree, my first one, as a freshman, I wanted to be a costume designer because I love theater. Okay. Realized very quickly that no, I did not have the skill to really do that. Still love the theater, and as I'd walk around campus, where I gravitated to was the on-site childcare, and I would stand at the playground and just, okay. So very quickly decided human development, family studies was where I wanted my degree path to be. So in class, as an undergraduate, I hear people doing their reports and presentations on child abuse and domestic violence. And in my mind, I'm thinking, no, never. Get out in the real world and suddenly you realize there's no way anybody is going to work with kids and not come in contact and experience child abuse and domestic violence. So over the years, because of that and because it is more well-known, more talked about, there is much more training on it in education, in people going into the field of education, even when they don't think that, that's what they're going to have to be or do. You learn it because. So everything that I have done, so as I'm in college and I am reading the professional journals and find a position called the Child Development Specialist with the state of Oklahoma. And I decide that's what I want to do. So that just led me down a path of working with children who had been abused, who'd been in domestic situations. My role was developmental screenings and parent education and parent support. Well, you tell parents to come to a parenting class and they're like, I don't need someone telling me how to be a parent. Mm-hmm. So I then, what's going to work? And I will tell you, I started doing something called advanced 2-year-old classes. Well, everybody wanted their kid to be an advanced 2-year-old. And so they started, one of the requirements to come to get enrolled in that guardian parent-child interaction class, which it wasn't bringing 2-year-olds to a childcare or a Mother's Day out. It was coming together. They had to do a developmental assessment. So I'd get them in, to screen and then do here's how we work together. And have just developmentally appropriate activities and just sit back and let the kids interact and the parents and building that trust and relationship. So suddenly parents can ask questions and learn. And it's not, all right, I'm the professional and I know what to do and I'm going to tell you how to do it. No, it's modeling, it's being there, it's listening, it's following their lead and all of that. So I did that. And then I moved to the Community Service Council in Tulsa, where I basically was involved in everything, early childhood to adult, in youth development and family support, in promoting prevention and supporting and whatever, and did several different programs to, as we talk about Camp Hope being, yes, I love it. I love it. I did another program that was the same type of thing, and it was an intergenerational mentoring program where we would go into the school, either a lunch or an after school, and we would invite people that were 55 and older to come and be a mentor and mentor some of the kids that, the school identified as needing it most. But it wasn't just mentoring. It had 4 components to it. One of the components was the mentor by someone who was 55 or older. One of the components was life skills. One of the components was service learning, encouraging the kids to give back. And the third one was family activities. And so again, it became the pulling the family together, doing fun things, supporting the family and building their hope, building their strength, and building them as a family unit and support with other people helping and working.
And that's
them.
a huge thing because it's amazing how not only can you change the dynamics in programs like that for the family, but for the community. So our congregation had a mentoring program for many years.
Yes.
And so I was one of those mentors. And, I grew up and knew what it was like for your parents not to show up for things and stuff. But I, at that point, was always showing up for my kids. So, and most of the time when we would show up for the awards programs and all of that stuff, then we would, there would be a lot of parents there. You can never have enough seating and stuff. But when we showed up in the school, there was nobody there. By the time we were a couple of years into that program, it was standing room only. Parents were showing up for their kids. It was just amazing to see those dynamics. Can we shift real quick? Because one of the things that's a hot topic right now is human trafficking. Yes. People think that they have this vision. The movie came out a couple of years ago, and that's what they see is you're just being snatched and taken to another country and stuff. But human trafficking is happening in our backyard. This is a very popular place for the hub because of how you can get in and out of Tulsa. In and out of Oklahoma. But it's also happening. People are trafficking their own kids.
Yes, that's exactly right. And they have been throughout my career. I just didn't have a name for it. It was just child sex abuse. And yes, it's because sometimes, rent. Some of it's drugs. Some of it is childcare. I have to go to work and I'm going to leave you with the landlord because then I don't have to pay the rent. And then what happens when I'm at work? There are things like that happen. Very often what we see through our Oklahoma Coalition Against Human Trafficking are usually young adults that were brought into the trafficking situation as a teen, either by usually it could be a relative, but it's usually a boyfriend. It's usually somebody that looks at vulnerabilities and identifies, I see these there are 4 girls together. I see these 3 are, good and I don't, but this one right here, she looks like she's vulnerable and needs some help and support, and build on the insecurities and whatever. Or they don't have the newest phone model that other kids do, and here, and start grooming them that way.
And that's another thing that abusers and especially traffickers is they look. And it's like they just have this sixth sense of being able to pick up on children that are already vulnerable, that are already, like you said, just not fitting in. You could tell something's off. And it amazes me, the dynamics of that.
So with the Tulsa police and actually statewide Oklahoma, the youth under 18 that are being trafficked are the priority, but we tend to typically find situations they're past 18. Underage, they actually, most people who are experiencing trafficking don't think that they're being exploited. They think it's their choice. And it gets to a point where they start realizing, I don't want to do this anymore. That's when they ask for help and seek out.
And just real quick as well, is that it's amazing how many people don't think that, and especially if they're the victim, they don't think that they're being trafficked. My sister was in a group home the last group home she was in, after being in and out of the system for 10 years plus, and having probation officers and stuff. And the group home, that's what they were doing, is they were trafficking the girls. They did not call it back then.
No.
They did, and they did not help the girls get counseling or anything. My parents were good about helping my sister get counseling, but the state just came in and was like, okay, well, you're doing something wrong. We're going to have to shut you down. But it honestly wasn't until a couple of years ago, I was at something at the Capitol regarding human trafficking, and just sat there and a light bulb went off in my head going, oh my gosh, that's exactly what my sister had gone through. And so, and she's doing great, and all of that stuff. And, she's gone through all of her counseling and everything, and it's amazing. But people still, even in today, we're in 2026 already, that we don't understand human trafficking. And so it's great to know that we have programs here to help victims and also educate the public. Because, again, I think the news and the movies and all that stuff makes people think, oh, that happens in other countries. Or they're snatching kids and taking them to another country, when it's actually happening in our own backyard.
Yes. And, you did mention it's easy because of getting in and out. And people talk about the highway system. Every state has a highway system. So we look at, some major, look at where direct flights are and things like that. But it's people that live here, and they aren't always or often necessarily moved someplace else. It's here that they're being trafficked. They're being sold, labor trafficking. They're being forced into labor, into domestic servitude, or into doing things, that they're being forced.
They're being forced to do.
Forced fraud and coercion is the definition of what human trafficking is. Either forced fraud and coercion for into the commercial sex industry or labor.
How has, if it has, how has technology, the internet and so forth, made for a more dangerous environment for children?
Well, yes, in that it's there and it's very accessible. But I have to add that COVID was also a big piece with technology, putting the two together, because people were stuck at home, away from relationships, away from building the connections. And so they go to the online, and predators do, reach out. And it's like, I had a human trafficking survivor leader say that she tells parents, you need to be giving the kids what they need or someone else will. And she didn't mean, she wasn't talking about, every toy, every whatever. She was talking about the emotional needs. And so that's one of the things that struck me as something to say to parents, to be thinking about that. But so, yes, I think that the COVID and being isolated had a big deal with it, and internet stuff. So Oklahoma has made some major strides in changing legislative wording on it's no longer child pornography, because that suggests that the child
is participating. That they're willingly, which a child cannot give that consent. That is not. So it is amazing. And Oklahoma is having a lot of strides to change a lot of our laws. They've changed a lot of our laws in domestic violence. How we met years ago was at an awards for a police officer who helped with the strangulation and changing the law that's now a crime.
Yes.
If there's strangulation during domestic violence. So Oklahoma has truly made a lot of strides these last few years.
So I wonder if you could say something about resilience. So, children undergo horrific experiences, and I mean, this does have long-term effects on their personality and their like
Brain
stress,
development, yes.
stress response system, and
Yes.
so forth, cortisol levels, so
Yes.
on and so forth. But then there's also, the possibility of ameliorating or recovering completely from these and having a productive, healthy, fulfilling life. And so, yeah, I just wonder if you could say something about like what makes for resilience.
Some of it is something innate that they have to, I mean, it has to be them wanting to do something, but there has to be supports around them. And all of the research says that youth need at least 4 adults around them to thrive. And so it's more than just a parent. And if you don't have a parent who's that supportive for you, there are others that can step in. Like you said, Heather, having the coach, having teachers, having different people. But there needs to be more than a just, hey, how are you doing today once. It's an ongoing thing.
It's an ongoing thing.
And it's, they have to have experienced hope. So that's one of the things that Camp Hope does is the residential camp gives them time to or opportunities to be successful with something that might be challenging, whatever that might be. It might be something really simple as eating something new at the meal, or it might be something more difficult like rappelling. But so getting success into whatever. And, I use an example with one of my young men who's now a counselor, working full time, doing amazing. He was always afraid to go into the water. And I never, asked if there was some trauma to it because it's not end of my business. But the fact that he struggled with that. And I wouldn't climb up some of those, high structures, and he would get to the top and just be whatever. And so really talking about the difference of we all have our own fears. We all have, different things. And just because you are afraid of whatever, someone else isn't. And we support everybody in wherever they are and whatever they want to do. So.
Volunteers are really important
Yes.
for the success of Camp Hope. So
Yes.
what procedures do you go through to vet volunteers?
So, of course, we have a comprehensive background check that our agency does that covers everything, everything that they can, do. And then they go through training. And so they have to go through the training to come to the just family engagement stuff where there's a lot of people. They don't have to go through the major training to start with. They can come and start learning. But if they're going to go and spend a week at camp, we have an in-depth training that OU Social Work Haruv Institute does. And it's a simulation lab. And they hire actors who pretend to be a camper with an issue and help the counselors and volunteers practice what might happen and how to do it. So that's a major piece that we do for the big volunteering. Otherwise, anyone is invited to do just any little thing, and it could be things like supporting a Pathways family engagement event, whatever that might be. It might be one of the things that we do at the Family Safety Center that I kind of coordinate is a program called 911 Cell Phone Bank, where people donate phones to us that I mail to this organization in Florida that wipes them, refurnishes them, or if they're no good, does whatever, but then sends us back phones that when someone needs it, it gets activated, and there's 2 months of free internet phone service. And even if it's not activated, it can always dial 911. So that is, just donating old phones. So that's something that anybody can do, that it doesn't cost anything if they have a new phone.
Yeah.
And so it can be something simple, or it can be very long-term and in-depth. Our mentoring program tends to be what we call group mentoring, that we don't have you take kids and go take them on your own someplace. We're always in a group. We're always together. So if you're doing a mentoring and you get with one kid and you don't have that connection, there are others that you can find the connection to, or just to be extra help. When we do our things at the Y, they usually have the Herman and Kate Kaiser West Side Y, which is their outdoor. There's always fishing. So people sometimes just want to come and fish with the kids. So there's simple things. And beyond what I am doing, I encourage people they don't have to do something that is different from what they do all the time. So look at your faith community. Are you attending a faith community where there's youth or families that just need a little bit of something extra? You're right there anyway. Or your neighborhood. Is there someone in the neighborhood that you can just do a little bit extra? Things even like if there's, single parents or working parents in your neighborhood and kids there after school, just being a open door that they know if you're home that they're there. And even as a working mom full time, my door was open, and some of our neighbor kids had been known to come in when they just needed a little bit of something extra. So you don't have to be a professional to be someone important in a child's life.
And that's what I was going to touch upon, is that sometimes people think, oh, I'm just one person. I can't make a difference. But I am here to tell people that you can, because sometimes just one person just was brought into my life at that precise moment that made a huge impact on me. So one person can make a difference. But if we have young adults and professionals and community leaders and stuff, how do they get involved with Camp Hope?
So going to the Family Safety Center, fsctulsa.org's website, and click on information or how to contact or whatever, they can reach out. Anybody can reach out to me directly through my email at ksmith, ksmith, at fsctulsa.org. And I can connect them with any of the things that I do. I just have to give a couple more stories because. Okay. So you talk about, we never know when something we've done has made a difference. We might think, oh, I did nothing with that. That was not a success, or, whatever. There is a adult who now works at as a security guard, and I've run into her a couple of times, and she sees me. I know you. You came to my elementary school, and helped me with some programs. Like, okay, and it's like every time she sees me, this big smile, and it's been probably 20 years since that happened, and she still remembers it and focuses. And so, yes, it's just little things like that you never know when you've made an impact on somebody and what you've done. And we don't necessarily have to know that we've done something. We just
know. And I have been fortunate to be able to go back to several of the parents and teachers and things in my life and thank them.
Yes.
Because, afterwards they knew our story and stuff. Before, at the time they were helping me, they didn't. But there is so many more people that came into my life that I've never been able to thank, but they have made a huge impact. And So when I'm out and about in the community and stuff, and people come up to me and tell me, I'm just one person, I can't do, but you can. You can make a difference. Even just like you said, in your own, in your own church, in your own neighborhood. It doesn't have to be with Camp Hope. It would be great to get you guys some volunteers and stuff, but you don't have to. So, so thank you for the information and coming on and sharing Camp Hope, which again, it's amazing what you do and what you do for these kids. And we just need more people like you, because you are making a huge impact on our community. And by the impact that you're making, it spreads out even further because of the campers, and then they become counselors. And just like the story you just told just a minute ago, that the person you ran into, I know you came to my school and just talked and made an impact on me. And here I'm out in the real world, and able to handle more of the stress of adult life and different things. So thank you very much for the things that you do. And
thank you for inviting me.
I'm partial to Camp Hope. I'm not going to lie.
I am too.
And so, and I'm very excited because you guys have a new facility that is opening, and we're actually going to do an episode and come and have our episode at the new facility. I'm very excited for the grand opening for that.
I am as well.
We hope you've enjoyed this podcast in which we talked about dealing with childhood trauma, programs that help families, and how you can help volunteer and support.
So please subscribe to and support our podcast. We have so many more exciting discussions coming up. So join us here each week, my friend, where you're sure to get a smile. From lesson learned to mishaps, the adventures go on for miles. Here on The Professor and Heather Ann.
Listening to The Professor and Heather Ann.